happening, guys? Chris, VA Travels, and I'm here at Chatham Manor. Huge Georgian mansion built back in 1771. We're here in Stafford County on the Stafford Heights, overlooking the Rappahannock River and Fredericksburg. And I'll take a walk down there in a few moments. And yeah, this is a great property. Lots to see on the grounds. But yeah, real quick, like I say, beautiful Georgian home. 12,000 square feet. It's your 5-part Palladian mansion. You've got the center portion, which they would sometimes call a salon. You've got hyphens, and then you've got wings on each end. And check out that sandstone face around the door. You've got the broken arch pediment, pineapple on top, and you'll see ghost marks. There used to be a giant double portico out front that wasn't original to the house. I want to say it was built in the 1790s. Might have that wrong, but it was taken down in the 1920s when the DeVore family purchased the house. Yeah, and they really fixed it up. And this was originally the front of the house until the 1920s. Back then, the front of the houses usually faced the rivers. The rivers were the roadways of the time. So yeah, the DeVores, they turned this into the back, took off the portico. I can also tell you real fast, and this house also is famous as being a headquarters during the Civil War, Union headquarters. So I'll get to that in a bit. And you also see they had some sort of portico going around this this door on this hyphen here. Oh, but speaking of the Civil War, I can tell you real quick, there was a hospital right there. That's where they did the surgeries and they removed limbs during the Battle of Fredericksburg. And yeah, they would toss them out of the window. And Walt Whitman wrote that there were a stack of arms and legs high enough that would fill a cart, a horse cart. And while I'm here, this is a giant catalpa tree that predates the Civil War. And these things are only supposed to live about 60 years. So, yeah, this thing's still hanging around. If you see their supports, yeah, really knobby tree with some giant leaves. Oh yeah, you see they've got bars right inside. All right, so yeah, like I say, extensive grounds. You've got plenty of statues. Take a look at the other side of it. And yeah, that thing would totally keel over if it wasn't for these braces. All right, yeah, to give you some history. So the house was built by William Fitzhugh. And the Fitzhughs were a big family here in the Northern Neck. Probably owned about half the Northern Neck back in the 1700s at one time. And just to let you know, he was a big supporter of the Patriot cause before the American Revolution. And he actually named this house after British Prime Minister William Pitt. He was the first Earl of Chatham. And he was a supporter of the American cause before the Revolution. And there have been many prominent names who have visited this house. Many presidents, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln's been down here, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, James Monroe, James Madison, author Washington Irving, Dr. Mary Walker has visited. She's the one that Fort A.P. Hill has now been named after. Clara Barton worked in here. Walt Whitman has visited. Oh, also Dwight Eisenhower. So yeah, yeah, a lot of famous guests. Gotten a good shot of the house, so let me go ahead and walk the grounds. I'll first take a look at some of these statues. And there are 4 statues on the property, one to represent each of the 4 seasons. Over here we've got a black locust tree. Yeah, again, another really gnarly looking tree. Okay, here's another. Yeah, and you'll see all kinds of different cedars growing. I don't know what this is, another type of cedar. Okay, yeah, and we've got a ginkgo. It's got some age to it. And over here we've got the Roman goddess Flora. And as you may guess, she was the goddess of flowering plants associated with spring. So I guess she represents springtime. And it looks like she's come bearing flowers. right. Yeah, like I say, ginkgo over here. And I always point out, you can tell by these fan leaves, pretty distinct. So we'll take a look at the statue inside the temple in a moment. Over here, this kind of wall is lined with Japanese yew trees. And it looks like you can kind of walk back there. A little bit of kind of a trail that goes along the wall. And I see an American flag back there. Let me walk back here real quick. Bunch of ivy on the ground. And oh, there are some Civil War graves. Yeah, okay. All right, there's some coins on here. Let me unknown soldier, Civil War. Oh, that's pretty neat. They've got that hidden back here. Glad I caught that. Oh, after the Civil War, 130, there were 130 graves, Union graves on the property, and there are a handful that still remain, but most were moved over to the big National Cemetery, which is going to be several miles across the Rappahannock, up on Marie's Heights. There's a big National Cemetery. I've got a video on that if you want to see more of it. Yeah. All right, so let me take a walk over here, and you've got some Ionic columns holding up this temple. I'm not sure what that is on top of it, but this would be Pan, and you see the little goat legs playing his instrument. According to Wikipedia, Pan is the god of wild shepherds and flocks, rustic music, impromptus, and companions to the nymphs. And he's playing some rustic music right there, it looks like. Pretty cool little statue. These statues were put up by the DeVores in the 1920s. Again, who I say really fixed up the place. Some more of these yews. Oh, all right. I see another path over here. Yeah, temperature cools down about 8 degrees when you walk back here. Check that out. And I remember seeing one of these when I was at Ingleside, some initials, down in Hanover County. Let me see where this leads. All right. Yeah, you can see we're up on a pretty high ridge, and I wonder if there's a little creek leading into the Rappahannock down here. I can't see any water, but you would imagine there's something down there. All right, I'll just walk down this real fast, see where it leads. Okay, this is going to lead down to the River Road, the road that takes you over to the Chatham Bridge that crosses the Rappahannock into Fredericksburg. Yeah, like I say, River Road right here, and right here is the exit to Chatham. It's going to wrap around. There should be a gate. Yeah, there's a gate when you leave. Oh, by the way, you can practically almost see where I live from here. So I've been to this property probably about 12 times, but I've only been on the inside a couple times. But I'll just walk up and take a closer look. But this road has been here since colonial times. You could think George Washington, Thomas Jefferson have all traveled down this road, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, I don't know if this was just made to be fancy, this little side entrance. But okay, you'll see up here it says Chatham, or I'm sorry, it says Manor. And again, some cool homemade hinges on the door. It doesn't say Chatham. Oh, okay, yeah, it does over here. And you'll see this wall, this gate is kind of facing in this direction. So maybe once upon a time, there was a gravel road leading that way toward the river, toward Chatham Bridge, and you can actually see a little bit of Chatham Bridge over here. And they just rebuilt that thing a couple of years ago, but it was originally built in 1820 by Churchill Jones. That's who William Fitzhugh had sold the property to. And he is the uncle of James Horace Lacey's wife. James Horace Lacey, like I say, he's the one who owned the house during the Civil War. Oh, and Churchill Jones, he served in the American Revolution underneath Light Horse Harry Lee. That would be the father of Robert E. Lee, so a little side note. But oh, and then the original bridge, it washed away a couple times, but they built a more sturdy bridge after a big flood in 1941. And like I say, then they just rebuilt it again a couple of years ago. So a little history on the bridge. Oh, and let you know, George Washington's Ferry Farm is probably just 2-3 miles that way. So yeah, William Fitzhugh was neighbors with George Washington. George Washington would actually visit often. And this is the last place he actually visited before his death. Another little side note. Let me walk back up that that trail. Actually, I think it's a quicker way to get back up. Alright, so I made it back up the trail. Got my heart rate up a little bit. And alright, I'll walk up, take a look at these pontoon bridges and get a closer look of Fredericksburg. Like I say, great view over here. And yeah, there are about 130 Union guns, I'll tell you, all along these heights, going all the way, if you guys know where Falmouth is, which is just about a mile down that way, going all the way, probably another mile down that way. So, yeah, massive bombardment on the city December 11th. And yeah, I just did a video recently. Oh yeah, you can see the skyline. You can see the Renwick Courthouse. The tree is kind of obstructing it. The kind of shorter building to the left there. He's kind of a famous architect. That was the original courthouse. I'll make a video on that. And one of the buildings shelled. You can barely see the top of it, a little red roof back there. The Fredericksburg Presbyterian Church, I just did a video on that recently. One of the Union shells hit that. Yeah, so St. George's Church, the tall one, with the tall steeple on top. And then you've got the Fredericksburg Baptist Church right there. And you've got the old library right there. And yeah, it's a Georgian structure. You see the internal chimneys, so I need to go take a closer look at that. Oh, and you can also see a little bit of the Douglas Gordon House. I don't know how well you can see. I made a video on that also. That was used temporarily as a Union headquarters by O.O. Howard, namesake of Howard University. But anyway, I'll stop rambling. Let me head over here. And like I say, Fredericksburg's my hometown, so I know this area pretty well, and I've been to this place, like I say, about 10 times. And before I take a look at the pontoon bridges, let me finish up on William Fitzhugh. Just to let you know, he was a member of the House of Burgesses. He was a Virginia delegate to the Continental Congress in 1779 up there in Philadelphia. He provided funds to build the big Rappahannock Forge, which is only a couple miles from here. Any locals? If you're on Route 1, you head up Route 17, you get to the top of the hill, you take a left and go back down toward the river just a couple miles up. There's a big armory, supplied weapons, made weapons for the American Revolution. And actually, Betty Washington, George Washington's sister, who lived over at the Kenmore Plantation in Fredericksburg, her husband, Fielding Lewis, was one of the overseers, just as a side note. Oh, and also, while I'm rambling, right here is where one of the pontoon bridges, the most upriver pontoon bridge, was held. So the river was actually a little bit wider. A bunch of canals have been built off of it over the years. It was a little bit wider at the time, and they went up Hawk Street right there. And there was a Barksdale's Brigade, the only Confederate brigade in town. Kind of held them off for a while, did a pretty good job. And Robert E. Lee, who was over on Marie's Heights, over on Telegraph Hill, which is now Lee's Hill, he didn't actually resist too much because he kind of knew he had the good ground, and he was kind of like, you know, we got this, you know. Yeah, but anyway, so that's where they headed up, and they somehow made their way over to kind of Hanover Street, kind of sort of, and went across the fairgrounds up toward Marie's Heights, just to tell you real quick. Yeah, so, all right, big old loblolly right here. There's another American flag over here, so it looks like this is going to be another one of those unknown soldiers. And there are supposed to be 3 on the property, so there's going to be another one hidden somewhere. So I'll take a look. And USA Unknown 1862. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, let me tell you a story that involves Nellie Madison. That's the nephew of President James Madison. 2 of her cousins, who had affections for her, fought a duel and killed each other over her. And it all started right here. It occurred, there was a Christmas party, 1803. The first cousin, that would be Francis Fitzhugh Conway. Some of you guys might be familiar with the Conways. They're out of the Belgrove plantation over there in King George at Port Conway, named after them. It's right across the Rappahannock from Port Royal. Yeah, so anyway, he had bought a fancy bridle for his horse to show off to her. Some stories say it may have been a saddle, but nonetheless, he bought this fancy bridle. And at the end of the night, when they brought all of the horses out, the bridle ended up being on another of their cousin's horse. That would be William Thornton, Thornton. And some of you guys who know your Fredericksburg history know the Thorntons were the first to patent this land, which is now Fredericksburg, going back 1671, I believe is the date. Yeah, so they're an old school family in Fredericksburg. Yeah, so anyway, so when he brought the horses out, of course, Francis was upset. He assumed, of course, William had sabotaged the whole operation, challenged him to a duel. And they ended up going to Alum Springs, which is a park maybe about 2 miles behind Fredericksburg, going west. And long story short, they ended up shooting and killing each other. Story goes, Francis died there that day, or kind of on the spot. And then William ended up going home, dying the next day from his wounds. Also tell you that William is, thought I heard voices. William is the stepson of Robert Welford, sorry. And he's kind of a famous Fredericksburg citizen. He was a surgeon during the American Revolution, and he started out as a British surgeon, but halfway through he switched sides and became a surgeon for the American cause. And George Washington actually bought him a house on Caroline Street, about the 1500 block, so it would be right over there. But yeah, crazy story. 2 guys fought a duel, ended up killing each other. All started here. All right, I found that last unknown grave, and it was, it's right here. I guess I just didn't see it over this brick wall, but yeah, unknown soldier from 1862. Yeah. Okay, and while I'm thinking about it, I thought of another story that occurred. This also happened at Christmas time, and this would be 1 year after the Nellie Madison incident, so that would be Christmas of 1804, and there was a minor slave rebellion. And like with a lot of these smaller stories, there's not too much documentation of what happened at the time, and then everything I've read online, you kind of differing accounts. But it sounds like what happened was there was some sort of dispute about how much time was supposed to be taken off after Christmas. Something occurred and the overseer ended up getting whipped and a white resident ended up getting killed. I'm just going to assume, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure they were trying to whip or severely punish the slave, and they probably had enough of it and rose up. But anyway, so the overseer went into Falmouth, like I say, which is about a mile away, gathered some people. They came, big melee occurred. Different accounts, they came back, 2 slaves ended up being killed. One account said 1 slave ended up being killed. I had read that one of the slaves tried to flee, swim across the Rappahannock, ended up drowning, which in January, because this happened, I think it was like January 5th or January 2nd, something like that. Pretty crazy. Yeah, but anyway, so once everything was settled down, everything was said and done, I guess the slave that started it all was hung, and then 2 of the younger slaves were sent downriver. In one of the accounts says one of the stories I read says they were taken to the Caribbean. So yeah, some craziness. Small little plane probably headed to Shannon Airport, although it's headed slightly in the wrong direction. Oh, also, oh yeah, it used to be terraces going down to the river. Also tell you, that William Fitzhugh's wife was cousin to Thomas Jefferson. And the Fitzhughs, they can trace their lineage to the Normans that came over in 1066 with William the Conqueror over to England. So yeah, pretty prominent family. All right, let me read the plaque. And this is an actual size. This is, I believe it's gonna be 3/4 size. And you see a pontoon bridge. What they did was lay these pontoons, kind of like little canoes across the river. It's pretty ingenious. I mean, simple, but yeah, and that goes back, it's nothing new. It goes back to the Roman times. They used to do that. And yeah, laid boards across. That way you can walk horses and whatnot across, cannons, soldiers, of course. But let me read these plaques, and I'll hover over them for a minute so you can pause and read. But yeah, here they are, right here. Oh boy, yeah, you'll see dead, wounded soldiers. You'll see bullets splashing into the water. And yeah, that was Barksdale's brigade. And I guess this is supposed to be the perspective of Surgeon Clark Baum of the 50th New York Engineers, watching the bridge builders about to come under fire. And yeah, church bells in Fredericksburg tolled at 3 a.m. on December 11th, 1862, as Union engineers wrestled pontoon boats toward the river's edge in front of you. And there were 2 pontoon bridges here in Fredericksburg, and then you go a couple miles down to Ferry Farm. If anybody from the area, there's a Walmart in Ferry Farm. If you go kind of behind the Walmart at the river, and that's where the 3rd big pontoon bridge, and it took all the, I believe it was Franklin's Grand Corps, if my memory serves me correct. But you can think of the Confederates as being the army divided in 2. Robert E. Lee, of course, was the major head general. And then you had Longstreet's Corps on this end of Fredericksburg, and then the southern end of the battlefield, you had Stonewall Jackson. Yeah, so anyway. Oh, also, yeah, so, yeah, Barksdale's brigade camped out here. They did a pretty good job of holding them off, but then again, a lot of bravery by the Union soldiers to tough that out and make it across. And one of these buildings is the Richard Johnston Inn, which is a bed and breakfast. Sharpshooters were in the room that I stayed in, overlooking firing down. So that's kind of crazy. Okay, over here, this is an actual photo. Yeah, I love these photos from that time. This photo is actually from May of 1863. That would have been the Second Battle of Fredericksburg, which was basically part of the Battle of Chancellorsville. And to tell you real quick, Union troops crossed over. They took Marie's Heights this time, then continued up William Street, which turned into Route 3, which was the plank road at the time. And they made it up to the Salem Church, or almost to the Salem Church, I should say, where they were repelled. 30,000 Union troops crossed over these 2 bridges. And this thing is at 80% scale. Yeah, so. And they would drop little anchors throughout just to kind of stabilize it in the river. Okay, let me come up here. I'll take a close look at this fence that has music notes on it. It was built by the DeVores in the 1920s. And these cannons over here, I'm gonna guess these are 30-pounders. I'm not an expert on artillery. Somebody can correct me, but they're pretty big guns. They're a lot bigger than the 12-pounders that you usually see the Napoleons. But yeah, just imagine 130 of these things lined across the heights. They may not have all been this large of a cannon, but 130 artillery pieces. Okay, all right, let me find this 3rd statue. But one more thing I have to tell you about William Fitzhugh is that his daughter Mary married George Washington Parke Custis. He lived up at the big Arlington house that looks over the Potomac, that looks over Washington, D.C. You can see the White House from it. And yeah, he was the grandson of Martha Washington, and Martha Washington was the wife of George Washington. And yeah, she had 2 children, so it's, I guess, George Washington's step-grandson. I guess he would be. She had a couple kids before she married George. So yeah, his daughter was Robert E. Lee's mother-in-law, if if anybody got all of that. And this would be the goddess Ceres, C-E-R-E-S, the goddess of agriculture, and is associated with fall. So, see, she's got some crops. She's got a sickle in her hand, just cut some crops. Pretty nice statue. And you'll see a wall lining this thing. Let me see what this plaque says. Bunch of crepe myrtles over here. Okay, so a good shot of the house, and you can see that big double portico that was out front. Oh, cool, wagons. All right, this guy's kind of lounging out. Oh, and that's still right there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and you'll see more outbuildings over here. And let me read this thing. Oh, what does this say? "'Tis a picture of desolation and a sad illusion of the ravages of war from 1863. And you'll just see the area has been devastated. And I'll tell you that Claire Barton stood on the front porch and watched the battle unfold. And then after the battle, so maybe 14th, 15th, she went over to the Fredericksburg Presbyterian Church, and she cared for soldiers. She cared for soldiers here as well. And so did the Dr. Mary Walker. Like I say, AP Hill is now named after her. She received a Medal of Honor. Oh, and then I'll tell you also, Walt Whitman, yeah, he also aided patients. He helped out surgeons because his brother, Lieutenant George Whitman of the 54th New York, he was injured, he was wounded. Take a look at this little bench, and it looks like there's some griffins. Pretty cool design. And yeah, really big into the kind of Roman Greek theme with all these statues. All right, over here there's an outbuilding, or not an outbuilding, I guess, where an outbuilding used to sit. Okay, so here would have been the four sides. And what was this? Okay, so a smokehouse, which was pretty close to the main house, surprising. Yeah, located by archaeologists in 1977. So, yeah, smokehouse sat here. And this was a bustling plantation. It was a pretty big one. Over 100 slaves on the property. So, I'll also let you know that two of the slaves ended up, there was a big emancipation here when the Union occupied the area. And they actually first occupied the area in the spring of 1862. And they weren't here to free slaves, but slaves took the opportunity to cross the river, and they were led by a guy named John Washington, who worked over at the Farmer's Bank, which is now the Foodie restaurant. Altogether, 10,000 slaves would leave. They would head up to the Aquia Landing, ended up crossing the Potomac and just going to cities up north, which I know a couple came back. I read the biography of Jane Howison Beale, and she had 4 house slaves. 2 of them left during Union occupation, but they ended up coming back a couple months later. I guess there was kind of nowhere to go. But funny enough, 2 of them stayed, and then her house was actually shelled on that big bombardment, December 11th, and she fled the house, and 2 of the slaves stayed in the house to hold it down. Yeah, while it was being shelled. So, pretty nice, yeah. And pretty nice gardens back here. So, yeah, I'll walk around the gardens and check out more of these outbuildings. Okay, so this is now a park office, and okay, so this was a laundry going back to 1768. And a lot of times the laundries and kitchens were combined, but maybe this place was so big that they were separate. But 2 chimneys, who knows? This thing's possibly been rebuilt or added on. Let's see, I think I see some little koi fish, goldfish, I don't know what they are. Probably just goldfish, they're not that big. Alright, some cool flowers over here. Alright, get some shade. And this is a 1.2 acre formal garden. And this is now the front of the house. I'll take a closer look. But again, you see a sandstone face again with a nice big old broken arch. and a couple of little rosettes there on the ends of the scrolls, and I see a pineapple in the center as usual, and kind of Corinthian kind of design columns going up the sides. But let me walk around, and there's kind of an entrance. I'll walk through the entrance, and there's some more outbuildings back here. All right, so over here we've got an old dairy barn, circa 1900. Just an old clapboard building. And can you kind of walk in there, maybe? I can at least stick the camera in there. I'd probably just store it. Yeah, it's just, well, it's just, I saw this wheel and I thought, oh, it's an old cannon. So, all right. And some greenhouses over here. Greenhouse is circa 1900, so the same time. I don't know the owner at that time. There were many owners between the Lacey's and the DeVores. Yeah, Chatham's greenhouses. Yeah, so this thing ended up being whittled down to just 30 acres. And this is a second greenhouse here, added, you see, in 1935. Oh, there's somebody actually working in there. Pretty cool, it's still in use. All right, let me bust through here. And you can pause if you want. I think this says the same thing. Yeah. A big field back here. Looks like they're still growing crops. And, oh, there was a horse track back here way back when William Fitzhugh owned it. This was also a staging area for those pontoon bridges. And this is where Major General Darius Couch's corps camped. Okay, here's Flora. Probably the nicest statue. I'll go up and take a look at her. And to let you know, General Edwin Bull Sumner, he actually headquartered here. All right, yeah, let me read these plaques, and I'll go up and take a look at the statue. Oh, wow. Lacey home. Yeah, it was referred to as a Lacey home during the time of the Civil War. And that's a really old sketching. Okay, you see some soldiers right here. And yeah, there were more outbuildings at the time. And are those little graves, or are they cut down trees? They're probably just cut down trees. So the sketching is from 1863, the east facade, which we're facing. And talks about how the DeVores switched the front of the house to this side. And then these formal gardens were moved over here. And they were designed by America's foremost female landscape architect. That would be Ellen Biddle Shipman. She designed the Shipman, the daughter of a Civil War general, designed more than 650 gardens during her career. Okay, so you can pause and read a little bit more about Miss Shipman. So yeah, this place is known for having pretty nice gardens. Okay, all right, so yeah, this is another one of those kind of famous, like anytime you go to a museum talking about slavery, you're going to have Whipped Pete, the guy with the scars on his back. You're going to have that ship with all the slaves laying in it, and this is probably the third most worst picture when it comes to slavery. And this supposedly comes from here, and it's an overseer watching slaves work. So, 1798 painting. All right, and okay, more than 50 enslaved workers here, sometimes nearly 100. Okay, so yeah, almost 100, which is a lot by Virginia standards. Anytime you get around 100, that's a pretty big plantation, swaths of wheat and corn. Let me take a look at this final statue, and this would be Roman goddess Diana. And she's just got a little arrow quiver back there. A little dog trying to jump up on her. And there are, this says Freeman 1717. She's got a big smile on her face and kind of holding a stick for the dog. I'm not sure what's going on there. To tell you that Diana, she was the patroness of the countryside, nature, hunters, wildlife, childbirth, crossroads, the night, and the moon. So there you go. Cool. All right, there's Diana, and here's the entrance. Pretty grand entrance. And yeah. All right, let me just wander around the gardens here, and there are a lot of statues. And it's August, so these gardens aren't really peaked out, but still look pretty nice. Again, you see the laurel leaves on the head, so another Roman figure. A bunch of children. Looks like this one's got some grapes going on. I don't know if she's squeezing it into wine. I'm not sure what's happening right there. Pretty fancy hairstyle going on. Okay, so kind of a little winged angel or a cherub right here. Okay, another child over here. And yeah, she's got a little basket, a bowl full of something. Alright, oh, there's some figures along the wall back here. Oh, and to tell you, yeah, just after the Battle of Fredericksburg, there were all tents lined up around here. I think I said before, 130 graves on site. So yeah, you could picture this, just quite a bustling area. And a few more of these Roman figures. Oh, pretty cool little kind of koi fish type kind of thing right there. Looks like it normally would be shooting out water. So pretty cool, kind of Asian themed piece. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have been here in the 1920s when this place was in its prime, when it was owned by the DeVores. DeVores only owned the property, I think, just a little over 10 years. It was in the 1930s. It was purchased by the Pratt family. Mr. Pratt, he was a big-time executive with General Motors, and the Pratts were a big family in this area. Right next door, we've got a big Pratt Park. They donated that land. Where the nearby YMCA sits, they donated that land. I know they owned Camden Plantation there in Caroline County. Caledon and King George. I made a video on that recently if you want to check it out. And then in 1975, they bequeathed the land to the Park Service, so that was cool. And I'll see if I can walk into this little kind of summer house. I don't know what it's called. I missed it when I walked by because there were some people in there. But let me just stick my head in here. It's kind of an empty kind of looking room. But yeah, what is it? Summer house from 1940. Okay, so the Pratts, they would have had this added. And just a kind of a nice area to catch some shade. Over here, some donors. Okay, there's the Fitzhugh family crest. Looks like a little raven on top, and they own Ravensworth, which was a big home up in Annandale, Virginia, up in Northern Virginia. And that's where he moved after he left here. He wanted to be closer to the newly developed Washington, D.C. Oh, and he also owned a townhome in Alexandria, which became the boyhood home of Robert E. Lee. So Robert E. Lee was born in Stafford Hall, out in the Northern Neck, and then when he was about 7 years old, I believe, he moved up to Alexandria into that townhome that was owned by I believe they rented that from the Fitzhughs. And the Duff Green, that's a pretty big family. They owned some mills in the Falmouth area. And then there was his great-grandson was also called Duff Green, and he owns the home going out toward King George. just past the Walmart out there in Ferry Farm, if anybody from the area. And it is now the tribal headquarters of the Patawomac Indians, which I need to visit. Yeah, so he donated that, which was pretty cool. Actually, let me sneak out of the back entrance, and there's Outbuilding way over there. I'm just going to take a quick look at. Okay, another ginkgo tree over here. All right, so kind of a stone building. I don't see much of a write-up. It just looks like probably the name of the building down there. Yeah, and at the time, back when this was 1,200 acres, these fields were divided, growing different crops, going all the way across. Okay, so what does this say? A mill house. Oh, milk house. Circa 1900, a milk house. It was kind of like a dairy, but it's stone, which is kind of odd. But then again, 1900, so. All right, yeah, I see a padlock on it. I'm not gonna walk back there. And the little path right there takes you to that Pratt Park I was telling you about. And then it cuts over to the YMCA, which is right behind it, I forgot. Yeah, so all that property, of course, the Pratts owned and then donated. Okay, so let me walk over, take a look at the other side of the property. And take a look at some of the buildings on the other side of the property, and then I will finally take the inside of the house tour, which is halfway a museum now. While I walk, I'll tell you about J. Horace Lacey, the owner during the Civil War. He moved in 1857. He was called by Abner Doubleday, the guy who supposedly invented baseball, as the most dangerous Confederate. That might not totally be true, but yeah, he was very pro-Confederate. When the war started, he left to become a staff officer. His wife, Betty, stayed at the house until it was taken over by Union forces. I guess that would have been spring of 1862. So she fled. And then they returned in 1865 after the war. House was decimated. They ended up selling it 1871, and they moved out to Elwood Manor out there in Orange County. Like I say, I've got a video on that if you want to closer look. And Lacey, he contributed a lot of the money to build the Confederate cemetery there in Fredericksburg. And he had that big gate, if anybody knows what it looks like. He paid for that gate. And he's also buried in there, to tell you. So we have some, just looks like grapevines over here. Oh yeah. I was just thinking, I hadn't really seen a magnolia, and it looks like it's starting to bloom. Okay, yeah, I've got some grapes coming in over here. All right, so we've got the parking lot over here. And I'll real quick just show you these signs. It's probably going to be going over a lot of what I just talked about. And yeah, Fredericksburg is a great place to visit if you're a Civil War buff. More action occurred here in Spotsylvania County than anywhere else in the country. So yeah, you've got Battle of Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse. You've got Stonewall Jackson Shrine right there, where he ended up dying. Yeah, so a lot to see in the area. Okay, a picture from the other side. Yeah, again, that big double portico right there. Big old gable stood out front too, so. Okay, there he is, William Fitzhugh. Another thing that I'll tell you, he was wounded by his brother in the eye. That's kind of a fake eye he has right there, a bullwhip, him in the eye. So, yeah. And there's probably one of the muskets that were built, that was made at that Rappahannock Forge. Okay, yeah, there's his wife, Anne Randolph Fitzhugh. Okay, yeah, there's the J. Horace Lacey and his wife Betty. Okay, good bird's eye view up here. Okay, yeah, talking about slavery, and here's one of the runaway slaves. 50 and 60 Negroes. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe it was a slave. Oh, Negroes for sale. Yeah. And there was a big slavery auction block in Fredericksburg. They've taken it down, but I think it's at the Fredericksburg Museum if you want to see it. But yeah, slaves would come in from the Rappahannock River and be taken to that auction block. And this would have been what the slave quarters probably look like. Yeah, usually just wood buildings. They usually don't stand the test of time. Oh, and real quick, this is a caretaker's house. I'll show you. And this is kind of a more modern building, but they've got it labeled as the caretaker's house from the 20th century. And there is a car parked with a, is that a Pennsylvania or a Delaware license plate? So, cool little kind of dormer type thing. 2 little windows right there. Big antenna on the side. Oh, it's, yeah, private residence, it's saying. This is the road that you come in on. Alright, let me walk through here. So, obviously some sort of barn right here. Pretty fancy lock with the horseshoe. That's kind of cool. Oh, that's old. Yeah, so I was going to say, would this have been a carriage house or are they horse stables? And this looks like, I think this was the carriage house. Oh, okay, so they had something. I don't know if they would pull up hay or something going in there. I don't know what would have been. What would have been going on? But over here we've got a corn crib. Yeah, you always know when you see these ventilated buildings. And I don't know what this little thing up here would have been. Kind of a interesting design up there on top. And what is this thing? A couple stones right here. Oh, there's a filter right here. What was this? What did they pump? Something? I don't know what this would have been. Yeah, obviously a lever right here. Yeah, if anybody knows what this is, let me know in the comments. So, yeah, some sort of fuel came out of that. Alright, I'm going to sneak back here. And, okay, so, yeah, you can tell 1920s. I don't see a sign. Maybe there's a sign on the other side, but probably a carriage house. And you can tell, yeah, 1920s, the DeVores would have put this in. And over here, look at the giant dormers on that. And I believe this is going to be the kitchen on this side. Find out, you can see there's a portico. There's the little ghost marks, that little white section. You would have think they would have gotten rid of that, but I don't know. And oh, a little kind of bird type of dovecote type of thing right there to house, I don't know, pigeons, some sort of bird would have housed up in there, it looks like. And yeah, like I say, headquarters for the National Park Service. And is this where they got their water? Pretty tall chimney. Okay, so what do we have over here? Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the other side. It's probably going to have more information, but yeah, there's some serious dormers on this thing. And you can see it was whitewashed at one time. Maybe on the inside they've kind of got a map and Flemish bond brickwork. Yeah, the thing would have been glazed, those headers. It would have had a shimmering look at the time. Oh, yeah. Big old sycamore right here, and sycamores always stand out. They always have really, really thick trunks, and they're always kind of a grayish bark. And they also have distinct leaves, but you can't really see those up close. So what is this, sort of some all right, yeah, that's what I thought. Kitchen, 1768. All right, so this is where they would have done the cooking, and this would have been the back of the house, of course, at the time. All right, I wrapped around. Here's the bathroom, and pretty nice bathroom in there, just to let you know in case you have to use it. But yeah, just as I thought, stable and garage, 1900. So try to get a look at the front side. It might be kind of obstructed, but no. Big old gable in the center there, and you could see maybe that's kind of been bricked over, so these might have been kind of doorways, not really big enough for a I don't know, maybe you could walk a horse in there or something, but not big enough for a carriage or an automobile. And yeah, again, you can see this has been whitewashed, so probably a bright white at one time. Let me just walk over here real quick before I go inside. Yeah, I was gonna say there's probably a couple statues. Let me see what this character is. See what this guy's all about. He's got a little shield right there. Interesting. I don't know what it's holding. And what is that? Just part of its cape or something? Blanket? Probably would have had stuff growing on here. Let me take a closer look. Yeah, everything's Roman themed. And again, are these lion's heads or maybe a griffin head, which is basically the same thing? Kind of just garland, the egg and dart pattern right there. A little urn down there, the rosettes. Okay. All right, let me make my way up toward the house. Oh. Check out this guy holding some grapes. Pretty cool. All right. Another little statue over here. Oh, blowing up. Oh, there's a goat right here. Interesting. Okay, so this one looks kind of happy a little bit. And this one looks scared, and I'm being hit by almost missed one, but this should be the final statue. Okay, so he's playing a flute with his hand on top of her head. Okay, we've got a little dog down here. Okay, interesting. Cool. All right, yeah. Pretty neat statues here. And let you get a view of this giant sycamore. And then again, that pediment, yeah, the Corinthian columns on each side. Very nice, and I'm wondering if that came from the Aquia quarry. Probably did, but I don't know for sure. Maybe I'll ask when I go on the inside. But here you go. They're open from 9 until 5 p.m. and it's free because, of course, part of the park service. All right, finally made it inside. Over here, we've got the ruins of the Phillips house, and like I said, this was Burnside's headquarters, and it was about a mile east behind the house. And here we are right here, Chatham. And they've got some binoculars where you can look out over the city. And as I've already pointed out,
You've got the old Renwick Courthouse, St. George's Episcopal Church, and the Baptist Church, and the Presbyterian Church right there. Great map of the city during the war. And of course you've got Lee up here on Maria's Heights, and this, like I say, would have been Longstreet's Corps up here. Here's Barksdale's Brigade, like I say, down here holding things off. The pontoon bridges and the other pontoon bridges kind of near the city docks. And yeah, 130 cannons along the heights. The caregivers. And for nearly 2 weeks, the house served as a hospital for Union troops. In just 3 days, more than 370 men were treated here. And, okay, yeah, a lot of what I've already talked about. Clara Barton, of course, was here. Walt Whitman was here to visit his wounded brother. And, yeah, you see some men who were just treated, a guy's arms in a sling. Yeah, people just laying on the ground. I wonder if, I wouldn't imagine they're dead, but, alright, we've got some instruments over here. These probes were used to locate a bullet. And amputation saws. The surgeon pulled the muscle upward, cut the bone above the wound, and then slid the muscle and skin back down over the bone, creating a stump. Ugh. And these catlins were used in the flap method, I guess, yeah, folding the skin over. As I've mentioned a couple times, more than 10,000 formerly enslaved people crossed the Rappahannock. Boy. Yeah, you can see the hardship on their face. Looks like some soldiers back there. And almost any hour from the hill where I sat writing, one can count a half dozen of them rafting their way across the Rappahannock, coming, as they say, to be free. J. Horace Lacey's trunk. And they think this was pre-Civil War due to the labeling. Alright, Fredericksburg, it's initialed or abbreviated. Alright, yeah, so we're in the parlor. Heavy damage to the room. In the 1920s, the DeVores and Craftsman matched and reproduced the original paneling. Yeah, so that's how it looked in 1927. And quick shout out to these guys. Surgeon over here, Jonathan Letterman, out of Pennsylvania. And then Harriet Bacon Eaton, nurse here on the grounds. Sketching from 1863. And Betty Churchill Jones describing the house in 1863. The paneling, of course, was stripped. All the windows and doors were gone. Trees had been cut down. And there was wilderness where the gardens were. And some sort of chimney right there, looks like. Yeah, and this is what it turned into about 1900. Way overgrown. Yeah, and you still see the giant gable and portico on there. Another drawing over here. In the same writing from Betty Churchill Jones Lacey. And you see all the military tents down on the south side of the building. You see Chatham up there. Something else back here. And this is the photo we saw outside. And yeah, Chatham was sold for $25,000 in 1872, like I say. Lacey's moved out there to Elwood, about 17 miles west out there, what is now Orange County. And this scabbard over here was decorated by a soldier who stayed here, a wounded soldier. And you'll see it right, is that it? Okay, that's kind of it. Cool. Alright, here we go. Boy, yeah, This is how it was 161 years ago. Take a look at this diorama. A couple more outbuildings at the time. You see the carriage turnaround, back of the house. And okay, you can see where they probably would have taken the pontoon bridges down into the river right there, it looks like. Or maybe kind of off to the side there. This would have been December, putting those things down. And wow, yeah. Fredericksburg was taking it pretty good. You see this house blown up, this building. Yeah, roof damaged on this one. We're in the morning room. A couple nice oil paintings. There he is, Churchill Jones. As I said, bought the house from William Fitzhugh, 1805, 1806, and his brother William Jones. And his brother owned that Elwood Manor out there in Orange. A little side note, his second wife, he married when he was 78 years old. His second wife was 16, and they had a child together. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, you see some of the original plaster, and I see some handwriting, which of course I'm sure, yeah, obviously was from the Civil War. This sofa over here, stuffed with horsehair. You see the scrolled arms. Pretty good detail on the legs there. I'm sure those wheels were added. Okay, little design on the drawer pulls. Oh wow, is that like an Egyptian pharaoh? That's the pyramid back there? Thing's made of mahogany. This portrait over here of William Lacey, and they're not exactly sure who this is. They think it was either J. Horace Lacey's father or maybe his grandfather. A little side note, I've heard it visiting a couple of these places. At these kind of lower quality paintings, a lot of times the artist would arrive and would have already had the body painted, and then they would just paint the person's face on. I don't know if that's the case with this, but I've heard that with a lot of other paintings. Okay, there's Betty Lacey as a child. J. Horace Lacey's wife. Pretty nice frame. Couple wingback chairs over here. And check out in the mirror, you can see there's a hole in the bottom, because it would have been a chamber pot underneath. Kind of weird. And this walnut dresser over here. I was about to say there were no handles on the top drawer, but obviously you pull it from underneath. No real legs on there. I'm in the hyphen on the northern end of the house. And along the wall, they've just got a lot of old photographs. A lot from the 1920s. And I think I'm going to kind of be going backwards in time, but these are a little bit more modern. This is the interior, 1970. Here's the front of it. Okay, looks like there were no gardens at this time. Okay, here are the Pratts right here. Like I say, big industrialist. And that was nice of him to donate the building to the Park Service 1975. Elegance, so yeah, this would be 1920s. And then I can tell you that Helen DeVore, she hired a photographer in 1927 to come and take a lot of these photos. She also, the photographers also took a lot of photos of Falmouth. I have a lot of those in the video I did on Falmouth. There's that sycamore right there. And you see they had a big path going out behind the house. Oh yeah, those pillars over there with flowers growing over them. Okay, and this is now where that little summer house was. I took a walk in. Yeah, there's the fountain. So, yeah, a little bit different. Yeah, heyday, 1920s. Yeah, Helen and Daniel DeVore purchased this property. That cow looks like it's a little underfed. Alright, domestic servant with his dog. Satyr Temple is what that's called. And yeah, that statue of Pan. Oh, over here, the West Terrace overlooking the river. Yeah, they had another statue there. Yeah, one on each side. This guy's playing some sort of saxophone type of instrument. Playing the guitar. Oh, here it is. 1927, a bunch of ivy on it. Yeah, you see that whitewash. Yeah, okay, we've seen this photo, 1900, way overgrown. Still has that portico on there. Okay, yeah. You can see there were two matching at the time as well. There it is, white right there, painted white. Electricity, running water, and a coat of paint. Oh, check out this old automobile. We've seen this picture. Okay, a panorama from the Rappahannock. Okay, you see the Chatham Bridge taken down. Yeah, these are stumps. Trees were cut down for fuel. Okay, General Rufus King, Union General, stayed here during the spring into the summer of '62. The only known wartime view of the east facade of Chatham. Oh, this is the earliest known photograph. This is 1910. Okay, I see one more right here when it was painted white. Yeah, pediment looks good right there. Yeah, 1927. The images were taken by Francis Benjamin Johnston. That was the photographer. All right, so let me take a walk into this back room, and this is where the surgeries were performed. Like I say, they tossed the limbs out of the window. I'll say it again. Walt Whitman described a stack of arms and legs high enough, big enough to fill a cart. Check out the painting back here, and I apologize, the lights are off. I don't know how to turn them on. And I'm no expert, but is that Italian? You see a cherub flying off in the background. Two people over there to the right, kind of waving to people, leaving via ship. Another kind of angel cherub over here. He's got his little quill down there, his little bow and arrow. And is this a monkey? Is that an African gentleman right there with his monkey? Interesting painting. Pretty nice though, nice frame. It's called The Elopement of Helen. Hung in the parlor. And 1855, a copy of Guido Reni's painting that's on display at the Louvre. Wow, okay, cool. Back here, another diorama. This would have been wintertime, obviously, or December, I'm sure. Okay, here we go. Chatham back here. Again, in the middle of building the pontoon bridge. Okay. A couple shells over here. And they've got a video you can watch. You can also find it on YouTube. It's about 13 minutes, going old school with a DVD player. 13 minutes long. Marble fireplace. Yeah, George Washington. And then over here we've got a marker dedicated to the 107th New York, who are camped in Stafford County at Hope Landing, about 15 miles north of here, which I would imagine is near Aquia Harbor. Yeah, shortly after the war, the remains of 22 soldiers originally buried at Hope Landing were permanently interred at the Fredericksburg National Cemetery, which I said is over there on Marie's Heights. And check out all these tents. And this is where the Union Army camped out winter of 62 into the spring of 63. Wow, yeah, 130,000 people. Bustling area. Okay, so we'll take a walk over to the other side of the house. Oh, what is this right here? I think I missed this. All right, this is one of the 8 columns that supported Chatham's west portico. Oh, from the old portico where the ghost lines are still visible. Well, giant pillar right here. Great oil painting of Anne Randolph Fitzhugh. And check out this Chippendale chair. Great detail on the back, shell back chair. Cool design on the apron. And you've got the ball and claw feet. Chippendale chair over here, pretty nice. Okay, so we're in the hyphen on the southern end of the house. And these books right here were written by one of the owners, Mark Sullivan. He's the one that owned the house before the DeVores bought it in the 1920s. So, yeah, I wrote several books. Here's a list of, here he is right here, Mark Sullivan. There's Mr. DeVore right there with his uniform on. So I guess that would have been World War I. And here's a list of the post-bellum owners for anybody interested. Post-bellum means after the war. Okay, there he is. Mark Sullivan, then the DeVores, like I say. And then the Pratts. And here's Mr. DeVore again, later in life. Oh, the light's kind of hitting it weird. All right, so over here, interesting story with the sampler. It was began 1793 by Martha Carter Fitzhugh. She was 7 years old. She only completed the first couple lines where she was eulogizing 2 of her sisters who had died. And then, ironically, after she had completed those couple lines, she died. So yeah, pretty sad. Some of the names up here: Betty Randolph Fitzhugh, Lucy Fitzhugh, Anne Randolph, of course William Fitzhugh. And here's the story. A write-up on Ellen Eliza Harris, Sanitary Commission. And she provided warm meals and supplies to U.S. soldiers encamped in Falmouth. The soldiers were fond of a dish called ginger panada, or bully soup it was called. And then over here, the Mary Walker, the one I keep mentioning that they named 4-Day Pill after. She won the Medal of Honor. And there was some cat fighting going on. It says that when Eliza returned to Chatham after treating soldiers at the Battle of Chancellorsville, she took issue with Mary's presence and threatened to leave unless Mary was sent away. She reported Mary to General Joseph Hooker, and Mary was sent up to Washington, D.C. So there you go. A little drama here. Oh, all right. You see the old brick right there? And some writings, looks like. And that's pretty thick. And we've seen this picture 100 times around 1900 when it was overgrown. And here's a write-up in the paper of when it was sold, $25,000. I mentioned that earlier. And here's a picture from Fredericksburg over at the top of the St. George's Church, 1881. You'll see the Chatham Bridge. And here we are back here. I'll show you the list of owners in the antebellum years. And like I say, antebellum means before the war. So Fitzhugh, as I mentioned, the Jones brothers, and J. Horace Lacey down there at the bottom. Yeah, as I mentioned, he got hit with a bullwhip when he was a child. Yeah, that's why his eye's damaged. William Fitzhugh later in life. William Jones, the 78-year-old that married and impregnated the 16-year-old. I shouldn't even laugh about that. Yeah, J. Horace Lacey. Hannah Jones Coulter. She also lived over at the Elwood plantation. The two homes are pretty interconnected. But yeah, she was a widow that lived here before it was sold to J. Horace Lacey. She lived here for 20 years. Her husband died 1838. And then when she sold the house, 1857, to J. Horace Lacey, she tried to free 93 slaves. But J. Horace Lacey prevented it. Somehow it was illegal to do that. They were supposed to come with the house. He took it to court, and they were not freed. So, And Ellen Mitchell, one of the enslaved here on the property. And pretty interesting story. J. Horace Lacey sold a lot of the slaves down south, but she was able to purchase her freedom. She raised $1,000 in 3 months. So, pretty good story. Yeah, it looks like they moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. So yeah, Fitzhugh was acquaintances with George Washington, his next door neighbor basically, and Thomas Jefferson. Apparently he had a problem with poachers. 2 of his horses had been stolen. And it looks like he put this in the paper in 1791. I hereby forewarn all persons from hunting or shooting on my land. Right up on William Fitzhugh, and he looks different in every picture I see, and this must be before he shaved his head bald. So yeah, the Fitzhughs were from the Northern Neck. He moved out to Fredericksburg just to kind of be closer to the action. Fredericksburg was a pretty bustling, Fredericksburg and Falmouth were bustling ports. Basically he just wanted to move out of the sticks. Looks like he inherited a slave jockey to ride horses on that horse track he had out back. And then, like I say, after he sold Chatham, he moved up to Annandale to Ravensworth to be closer to the new Washington, D.C. that I had mentioned. Fireback right here belonged to John Fitzhugh, a relative. You'll see 1752, so predates the house, obviously. You see it's got some wear and tear on it. And it was found in a house called Boscobel, Boscobel. Check it out. Are those little foxes right there? Some animal, little torch at the top. Kind of some sea scrolls down here. Another kind of urn type of design going all around. Oil painting, J. Horace Lacey. I'm not sure what I think about that haircut. And this was painted in 1860 by Emmanuel Lutze. That would be Leutze. And what is this over here? Does this go back to the Civil War? Leroy? Oh, yeah. To show off the cornice. Medallions hanging down. Dental molding going all around. And yeah, all these rooms have wood paneling. Real fast. Brass candle holder owned by William Jones. Okay, so let me walk into this last southern wing. And you'll see a kind of pantry back here. Butler's pantry. Here's that domestic worker. Again with his dog. This room had all the modern technologies. Electricity and running water. And a dumbwaiter. And so at the time the kitchen was below. Yeah, Yeah, dumbwaiter over here. We know how this works. A little pulley, bring the food up. And of course the kitchen originally was outside. Over here, Julia Vergis, 1939. Oh, is that a baby right there? Yeah, okay. I thought she was cooking some food. But she was born into slavery out in Spotsylvania in 1863. And it says that she was never educated, but her children went on to get an education. And over here, yeah, I've already taken a look at her, Ellen Biddle Shipman. She's that landscaping architect the divorce hired to design the gardens. She operated her firm for 35 years. Oh, all right, so something went on right here. I don't know if that ended up going below. Okay, kind of a copper sink over here. I don't know if these handles wouldn't be going back to the 1920s, but yeah, copper sink. And yeah, so there's a stairway here originally, and then now it's behind us. Oh, I'm surprised there's no fancy medallion up there. Pretty nice chandelier. And over here some artifacts. And there was some archaeological work done just after it was acquired by the Park Service, 1976, 1977. And this bottle, this wine bottle, was made up in Philadelphia. We've got some stoneware over here. All right, a child's marble. Pretty interesting. And then, yeah, I know some of you guys like to look at blueprints, so here you go. And it looks like we are in the reception room, if I'm looking at it right. Second floor. Oh, and the basement down there. Alright, yeah, we've seen a lot of these photos. And the stairway hall, 1927. Oh, pretty cool little model ship right there. That's it for my thorough tour of Chatham Manor. I hope you guys are still with me. I appreciate those who stuck around. But before I get out of here, I'll let you know I've got an Instagram page. I probably have the worst Instagram page a vlogger could have, but yeah, I just put up pictures of some of the sites that I visited. It's nothing too special. I'm not one for putting up pictures of myself, but I know it's part of the gig, so I need to warm up to it. And also, if you want to help me get out to more of these places, how about with gas, hotels, all the drones that I keep on crashing, you can support me on Patreon. And yeah, guys, as always, like and subscribe. See you on the next one.